And I come all the way from the most diverse city in the world, and that's Toronto. Yes, it is the most diverse city in the world. And just to share a little bit about my background, my parents immigrated from the Philippines, came to Toronto, got married, and had one child, me. And so for the last 33 years, I am proud to say that I have been living under the same roof with my parents. Yes, the same roof. And I know some of you might be able to relate when I say that sometimes it's not always easy to live in close proximity with your parents. But what I must say is that the time I've spent getting to understand my parents better has helped me to not just accept them for all that they are, but myself for all that I am. You see, all throughout my teens and my 20s, I actually had a hard time accepting myself. But no one, including myself, would have known that back then. Because I was known to be happy. I was known to be confident. But what I didn't know is that I was getting my happiness and confidence in all the wrong places. I got it from being popular. I got it from being beautiful. I got it from being educated and successful in my career. In my relationships, I always needed a man to love me. And when that became unfulfilling, I said next and I looked elsewhere. Same with careers. After just 4 years of being an occupational therapist, I felt unfulfilled, so then I became an elementary school teacher. And by 30, I was contemplating my third career change. In my first 30 years, I had traveled to 30 countries.
Wow.
Mostly out of a desire to explore the world, but admittedly, out of an inner search for something that was missing within. You see, I was living with me looking outwards, looking externally for happiness. I was living a life without, until life slowed me down and forced me to go from living without to living within. Life gave me something that would give me no choice but to slow down. Life gave me a spinal cord injury. 2 summers ago, I decided to go for my motorcycle license. Because my dad, ever since I was born, he was an avid motorcyclist. And so I've always had this dream to one day get my license, get my own motorcycle, and ride side by side with my dad through the mountains. So on August 28, 2010, I went to a motorcycle school, took lessons, and on that first day, only after 8 hours of being on the motorcycle, I lost control of the bike, accelerated into a curb, and I got thrown 10 feet across the air, flipped upside down, hit a fence, landed on my back, and broke my back. I sustained a burst fracture of the 12th thoracic vertebrae, compressing my spinal cord 60%. So picture this beautiful day like today, blue sky, I'm on the grass in fetal position, paralyzed, with no movement from the waist down. Luckily for me, Sunnybrook Hospital, one of the best acute care hospitals in all of Canada, was only a 20-minute ambulance ride away. Now, I'll never forget these very precious moments in that ambulance. So, I'm laying straight on a stretcher. Now that I've been pulled out straight, pains are intensifying by the minute. And I'm looking up at that aluminum ceiling of the ambulance. And you would think I would be in a state of panic, shock, fear. But instead, I was in a state of just peace and gratitude. Peace with God's will, whatever it was, even if it meant being in a wheelchair for the rest of my life. I was at peace because I was just grateful. Grateful that even without my health, I still had the most important thing in life. And that was relationships. I still had the ability to have a relationship with myself, a relationship with people, and a relationship with God. But the weird thing is I had never talked like this before. I had never talked to my girlfriends like, oh, yeah, just appreciate relationships, be grateful for relationships. I had never thought like that before. And yet in these moments, in that ambulance, I was embodying this truth with conviction. Why? Because in those moments of vulnerability, I connected to the divine source within. So I get to surgery, and I'm in surgery for 9 hours, where the surgeon was able to take all the burst vertebrae from my spine to decompress the spinal cord, took a bone graft from my left hip to replace that missing vertebrae, and placed 2 titanium rods, just like my titanium stick, with 8 screws, which are there permanently. After surgery, he went out to the waiting room and told family and friends that I had very little chance of ever walking again. I woke up from surgery, and fortunately, I had some hip flexion and knee flexion, so I was able to do this. But that's it, because I am an incomplete paraplegic. I had no bladder control, so I'm still doing catheters, no bowel controls. I had severe neuropathic pains where just lifting the pants off my legs or pulling the blankets felt like knives ripping through my muscle. I needed 2 people to help me, not just to get out of bed, but just to roll from side to side. It was horrible. And yet, for those months of pain and struggle, I was in a state of hope. And there's a reason for that. Because those summer months, a message kept resonating with me. So whether somebody mailed me a card, or it was a Facebook message, or a tweet on Twitter, there's this message that kept resonating with me. And so it stuck with me. And that message was actually a Bible passage that goes, suffering produces perseverance. Perseverance, character. And character, hope.
Yes.
And so when I woke up after that surgery, that message was at the forefront of my mind. And I knew that all the pain and struggle from here forward would be an opportunity. An opportunity for me to choose to respond in a way that would help me grow. My first journal entry after surgery was a contract, a commitment I made to myself that from this day forward, every day, I am going to grow, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually as well. So after 2 weeks at Sunnybrook, I was then transferred to Toronto Rehab, one of the best spinal cord rehab hospitals in all of Canada, and I was there for 3 months living there. And I worked hard daily with the support of family, friends, a great rehab team, and one person in particular, a roommate. His name is John Smith, and he changed the trajectory of my life. John Smith suffered a severe bicycle accident and was completely paralyzed from the neck down, completely paralyzed. And yet this man, in comparison to all of my friends and family, had the most joy. He smiled the most. Why? So we're both in the physio gym one day. I'm like, John, what's up? You've lost so much, and yet you smile more than any of my friends. And he said this. He said, I'm just grateful for freedom. Freedom. The freedom to live my life how I choose. Because he lost all freedom physically, and yet he had the freedom to choose to live his life.
Yes.
He said, I am free to choose to respond to life.
Wow.
Now, many people feel that this responsibility is a burden, but the truth is, this choice is freedom. And so, for the next 3 months at Toronto Rehab, I chose to exert that freedom. Despite the pain and struggle, I came back to gratitude. And gratitude is a powerful force. And with that force, along with family, friends, and a great rehab team, I worked hard, and I went from using a wheelchair for 3 months, moved on to a 4-point walker, to a 4-wheeled walker, and eventually I was discharged with 2 single-point canes. Now that was 2 years ago, and from that point until today, my recovery and rehab has been my full-time job. I haven't been able to go back to work yet. I've been working on my recovery. And I've formed a multidisciplinary team. I handpicked each person that would help me grow, not just physically, but mentally and spiritually. So my rehab team includes a physiotherapist, an occupational therapist, and chiropractics. I do Pilates and yoga. I see a craniosacral therapist, a massage therapist, and I do water therapy. And of course, for my mental health, I see a psychotherapist and a social worker. I also do a daily practice of meditation and prayer. And every month I meet with a group of women. We're called Women of Faith, and we keep each other accountable to living our lives as women of faith.
Yes.
Now, no doubt the last 2 years have been full of struggle. But the last 2 years have been a blessing. Because for the first time in my life, I could just focus on myself. And with the guidance of a great, diverse team, family, and friends, I have been able to learn about myself. And I have now come to a point where I can say, I love and accept myself unconditionally. And so, I'm growing. And as you can see, I'm walking with just one hiking stick now. And actually, when I'm indoors, I really don't need it at all. It's just for outdoors, so I'll put that aside. It's more of a prop now. Gives me swag. Now, I do still need to wear these running shoes and orthotics and ankle braces, which you guys will see later. And I still need to use a wheelchair for long distances, and I'm still unable to walk barefoot. But I know if I keep working on the health of my mind, body, and soul, that I'll continue to reach all of my goals. And one of them is to climb Mount Kilimanjaro by end of next year, and you'll see. Now, some may think that I'm normally a positive person, but no. Sometimes I feel like I'm going crazy. Crazy with insecurity, crazy with worry, stress, anxiety, and yes, depression. But I guess these are the wonders of what make us a human being. Irony. I love irony because you know what's ironic? That only when I stop to sit in the craziness, to sit in the insecurity, to sit in the worry and depression, only when I stopped to sit in the shit did I blossom. And I'll share just 2 short stories of my lowest points in life, and you'll see what I mean. This time last year, I went to Cuba with my family for 7 days. And instead of sun, fun, and relaxation, it was sun, frustration, and limitation. Because I have to wear these damn things, I can't even walk on the beach barefoot. I can't even go into the ocean. I can't even go into the swimming pool. What's the point of going to the beach if I can't do any of that? I was even going through a loss of identity because the things I identified myself with, I couldn't do. I'm a dancer. So every night my cousins would go to the club, and instead of me being the one on the dance floor tearing it up as always, I'm sitting on a chair in the corner watching everyone else have fun, or I'm in my room tired. And for those of you who have been to an all-inclusive resort, you know there's the animation staff that get people to come up and volunteer and participate. Well, that used to be me always up there, up in it. But no, sitting down, watching, in pain, tired, or just couldn't physically participate. Needless to say, I came back from that trip depressed and confused. I came back from this trip telling my mom, I need to go on another trip. I need to get away by myself. And so that's what I did. Just a couple days after Cuba, I hopped on a train and went to a spa retreat where I spent several days just to be alone and be. No computer, no internet, no television, no music, just me, myself, my pain, and God. And so I sat in my misery for a while until one pivotal moment. I was actually doing yoga. And a realization hit me like a truck. It was a realization that, oh my God, in the past 1 year, not once had I stopped to thank myself, to thank my mind for persevering, to thank my body for all of its recovery, to thank my soul for just being. So after that, I journaled, and I reflected on all of my milestones. And as I was writing, something came over me, and things started to flow. Words started pouring out of my pen, and within an hour, I had written a piece I called Celebrating Life with a Disability. I came back from Cuba feeling like life was full of frustration and limitation, but I came back from the spa retreat feeling that life is a celebration. And as life would have it, several days after, the Canadian Paraplegic Association asked me to share a story at the 2011 International Day of Persons with Disability.
Wow.
So I did. And the Toronto Star, one of Canada's major newspapers, received it so well that they asked me if they could tape me and put it on their website for the world to hear. Irony. How ironic that an experience so ugly as that in Cuba paved the way for something beautiful to happen, not just for me, but for others as well. How ironic how sitting in pain led me to discover a gift I never knew God had given me, the gift of writing and the gift of speaking. But that wasn't my lowest moment. My lowest moment was just this summer. You see, I had taken several courses on mindfulness. And I knew that before I can go and teach people how to live mindfully, I have to delve into this practice myself. And so that's what I did. This summer, I put the welcome mat out for all of myself to be. And let me tell you, I've explored many countries, but no worldly exploration has been as scary as the journey within.
Amen.
This experience was like being in a dark, dark cave with mirrors all around. And I'm finally looking at all of myself and all these things I've been too distracted and too busy to ever realize. Things like, oh, I'm really self-conscious. I'm really jealous. I'm really insecure. And, oh, I'm really resentful. But what really surprised me is how my habits of people-pleasing, worrying what others thought about me, and even my desire to get married and have children, all of these things stem from one thing: the fear of being alone. Realizing that was like taking a box from under my bed, taking the lid off and pulling it out and looking at something for the first time. And so my lowest moment ever, I'm in my bedroom, alone, in bed, crying. And I really felt like the world was getting darker and darker and darker as I'm looking at my fear, until all of a sudden, I felt God. And at that moment, I knew that I am never alone. And from that moment on, I've been letting go of the shit, and life has been flowing with abundance that sometimes I'm so high I feel like I can fly. Irony. How ironic that when I finally face my fear, I feel courage. When I face my weaknesses, I feel strong. But you know what? I'm lying. This is not irony. This is not ironic. This is life. Because now I know that life is only as good as it is bad. And it only gets as bright as it gets dark.
Yes.
So you know what I say to life? I say, life, bring it on. Bring it all on. Bring the uphills with the downhills. Bring the rocky roads with the smooth roads. And bring those valley lows with those mountain highs. Because as long as I am not 6 feet under, I am on ground on this journey that we all call life. And may we all walk together. Not from a place without, but from a place within.